You're thinking about buying new construction? Let's talk about the pros and cons.
So we're actually out here in North McKinney in community Trinity Falls, great area. So we're gonna be talking today about a little bit of the pros and cons of new construction versus if you were to buy pre-existing residential.
Yeah.
So if you guys, as always, if you guys like the content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. So let's kind of dive into it a little bit and see, what are some of the benefits and maybe some of the drawbacks of buying new construction.
Yeah, so I mean, the obvious stuff you're going to talk about pros wise, it's going to be, you are buying new construction, the maintenance side, you really don't have to do a whole lot with it to start with. Now, depending on who you buy from, could depend on how quickly you start having to do maintenance from it.
Correct.
So we've been looking at some Highland homes and Perry homes today, and they are going to be the ones that you don't have to worry about for a while. They go the extra mile, you got extra insulation, they've put piers in already. Like, these are homes that are built well.
Yeah.
You're paying extra for them, but there's a reason why.
Now, a lot of that comes into price point too. Obviously, the higher price point you go to, the less you're probably going to have to deal with some of those. But you do have some builders, some of your more entry-level builders, some of your Lennars, your D.R. Hortons, which I like some of those builders. I don't particularly care for some of them. I won't name names. But with those, you do just kind of understand that, again, you get what you pay for. But with some of those more entry-level homes, they're great starter homes. That's for a lot of first-time home buyers, for young families. You're getting, 18, 19, 2,000 square foot home. Floor plans are going to be good, but not going to be the highest quality of products going into them. So that's a drawback there of, you may have issues 5-10 years down the road, but again, it's not something, you're not buying a home right off the rip that's 20-30 years old that you probably have a laundry list of honeydew items that
fun inspections.
Yes, exactly.
So I kind of touched on it there a little bit with the insulation, but a lot of the newer homes are being designed to have a lot more energy efficiency, which is great for a lot of people.
Yeah, super efficient.
Especially in summer in Texas, you're getting your 105, 110 degree summers.
Yeah.
And to have a home that is heavily insulated, one, you don't have to worry about your energy bills. And two, heavy insulation with just the normal sort of insulation or spray foam, you're going to not have to worry about it for a long time, and you're not going to have to spend money on re-upping your insulation.
Goes to, it helps with your HVAC systems. I mean, you're not going to have as much strain on those systems.
Yeah, there's just a lot of benefits to it that really help you long term. Again, it's something that you might want to think about within an older home, which might cost you a lot up front, but again, long term, you're going to save quite a bit of money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for really one of the final points, and this is one, wasn't as big of a thing, 4, 5, 6 years ago when we were seeing interest rates down to 2, 3, 4%. Usually builders would offer some sort of incentive to go with their in-house lender. But one of the big things we're seeing now is builders that have bought tranches. They're buying at a discounted rate, but in addition to that, they're offering huge incentives on financing. I mean, with this home here at Highland, they're offering on this particular product that we're at right now, they're offering $20,000 in closing costs to buy your rate down, to pay you some of your closing fees, or you do another program where they've already bought a lower interest rate where you're at a 4.99 for the first year, and then it jumps up to a 5.99 for the term of the loan. Well, market value here last I checked was 6.75.
Yeah, I mean, you're saving a lot of money over the short term and long term as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, first-time home buyers, don't have an extra $20K to bring to closing costs. That's a huge amount of money that can really help you out.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge savings. That it's one of those that we kind of like to have some of those more in-depth conversations with folks, because it's tough to quantify what that looks like, because you don't really think about like, oh, if I get a 5% interest rate on something that's $450 versus a 6-7% market interest rate on $385, you're probably looking at a payment that's going to be pretty similar, where that's a pretty big jump, where it's kind of surprising on, kind of weighing out that new construction versus maybe a pre-owned single-family residential home.
One thing I do like about a lot of the new build sort of residential neighborhoods that are coming up now is they're not just homes and streets. You've got the amenities that come with it. You've got dog parks, you've got walking trails that they're kind of inputting in already. Whereas a lot of the older homes, you have to kind of pick and choose the areas that have them or are close to them if you want to use them. I mean, we're sat here and you can kind of look over there. There's a dog park across the street. I mean, there's
they're doing more master plan communities, where it's not just a neighborhood with a bunch of houses thrown up. I mean, it's, your walkability, your amenities nearby are
it just looks nice. You've got greenery everywhere, whereas it's not just pavement and concrete,
Now, to some of the cons, downsides to new construction. Obviously, first and foremost, price. I mean, compared a lot of times to clients of buying a new car versus buying pre-owned.
Yeah.
You pay a little bit of a premium for a new shiny home. Everybody loves the new shiny that nobody else has lived in. So you do kind of typically have to pay the premium for that.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a pro, and sometimes you're getting what you pay for. But yes, a lot of the time, especially for younger folks, you're probably going to have to pay a little bit more for a new home.
Yeah, apples to apples, it's probably going to be a little bit higher price per square foot.
Yeah. So another thing with new builds, it's going to be location, especially in DFW. There's really not a lot of land in the inner parts of DFW. You really have to go further out into the Metroplex, and this is why McKinney is growing so fast, is because it's so big. There's so much land that all these developers have just bought up, acres and acres and acres.
Yeah.
But you're having to go further out in McKinney. I mean, we're in North McKinney. I mean, we're a little ways out. Yeah. So that's the downside. You're going to have to buy these homes and probably wait for the rest of it to catch up, which, in 5-10 years time would be great. But for right now, you're going to have to travel a little bit if you want to get to,
well, we've seen the same thing, at Flower Mound with the community Lantana. If you were to look at that 15-20 years ago, there was nothing out there. And now you go drive out there and there's all kinds of restaurants and bars and, shops and all that all nearby. So the growth will happen.
They'll get that eventually.
The Metroplex is expanding, but when you buy that new construction, that initial purchase, a lot of times, you're going to be a little further out.
Yeah. And one other thing you may want to consider when buying a new build is definitely where you're buying in particular with regards to how many phases there are going to be. So if you're buying a new construction in phase 1 and you know that there's going to be phases 4, 5, 6, 7, because I know there's some, I think the Meritage are doing up to 8 phases, sort of East McKinney, you have to think about resale value. So if you are going to be in the home for 10 years, then it's really not something you have to worry about as much. But if you know that this is going to be a starter home and you're going to be in here for 3 to 4 years, you're going to have to sort of be aware that you will be competing against newer builds in 4 years time, because phase 7 might be getting built and all of a sudden do people want to buy your home that's been lived in for 4 years, or do they want to buy a brand new home for an extra 10,
well, and this
15K?
is one we're dealing with actually right now with some clients of mine that they bought a DR Horton home 2 or 3 years ago and are doing great. I mean, they all kinds of equity because prices have jumped a ton, but DR Horton is doing the closeout sales on the neighborhood because they're wrapping up, they're finishing up in the neighborhood. And a lot of times builders will come in and just do fire sales right at the end of that closeout and go, you know what, we're gonna give $15,000, $20,000 in closing costs off the price. And that's a really hard.
It's hard to compete with.
Head to head, again, same thing we just talked about a little bit earlier. Yep. New car versus used. You're gonna have to make that price adjustment to counteract the new versus pre.
Yep.
Yeah, and really the final point that we're seeing pretty much across the board in most all new construction, outside of a few builders here and there, is lot size.
Yeah.
Developers and builders, they got to make a profit.
Yeah, they're just trying to put as many homes on a piece of land as they possibly can. You're not going to find the new home on a 1/4 acre with a huge yard. You'll to be honest, some of the Perry homes you saw actually had a decent sized yard.
Yeah, they were 120, 130 foot depth. So I mean, you have some decent, but you still have a yard. But
there are a lot that do. Was it you saying the DR Horton ones in, you see ones in the Hampton Village,
it's
and
a postage stamp.
They're $1.5 million homes, and they have yards that you can't even throw a ball in without losing the ball.
Oh yeah,
it's going to go far away. I mean, they're just so small, and so if you're going to be wanting to get a large yard, that is where you might want to be looking at some of the older homes, because they kind of built the smaller homes on the larger lots.
Yeah, and that was a little bit more custom back then, just to have a little bit more.
Yeah, so it's a give and take when it comes to new builds. And that was the pros and cons of buying new construction. If you do have any questions about new construction, or you're thinking about seeing some, we do have our information down below.
Yeah, and make sure to check out our other videos if you want to take a look at some of the ones we toured today. Checked out some really cool homes.
Really nice ones, yeah.
So yeah, make sure to check that video out, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.